Exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
Well, Tim, it's awful cramped in here. I can't believe we're time traveling inside the Kecksburg Bell.
Well, Tim, where in time do you want to go today?
Well, I was thinking maybe Dealey Plaza, of course. You can guess the date.
Well, do you want to try and solve the question on who killed JFK?
Well, that, and I want to find out where the Babushka lady gets her headscarves.
Well, we don't need to time travel to do that. We can talk to the Babushka lady right now in 2018 on Exploring the Bizarre.
Wow, I think, isn't this kind of an exclusive? I don't recall ever hearing anybody having a conversation with her on the air. So maybe she has some insight on what happened that day in Dealey Plaza, and who might really have been responsible, and what was Jack Ruby's involvement. I don't know. There's a lot of things we could ask her. So why don't you start off, Tim, and get the ball rolling?
Well, it would be my pleasure. And it is a pleasure tonight, Tim, because we have with us Beverly Oliver Massagee. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Beverly. Now, Beverly claims to be the Babushka lady who was present at Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas during the 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Now, her nickname came from the headscarf she wore, which was similar to scarves, I guess, worn by elderly Russian women. Now, the Babushka lady was seen to be holding a camera by eyewitnesses, and she was also visible in the Zabruta film. But neither she nor the film that she took has yet to be ever, I guess, positively identified. No known photograph with her in the frames captured her face. And so now in 1970, Beverly told conspiracy researcher Gary Shaw that she was the Babushka lady. At the time, at the JFK assassination, Beverly was a singer and dancer at the Colony Club, which was right next door to Jack Ruby's Carousel Club in Dallas. Now, Beverly stated that she filmed the assassination with a Super 8 film camera. For any of you out there who are old enough to remember that, I know I do. I had that was my first film camera, Super 8 film camera, and that she turned the undeveloped film over to two men who identified themselves as FBI agents. Beverly said that that they told her that they would return the film to her within 10 days, and they never did. So now she reiterated her claims in the 1988 documentary, The Men Who Killed Kennedy, and she's also the author of the book, along with Coke Buchanan, Nightmare in Dallas, the factual account of Beverly Oliver Massagee, who was a key eyewitness to the JFK assassination. So, Beverly, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Exploring the Bizarre.
Beverly.
I forgot it was on mute.
There she is. There she is. We do the same thing all the time, Beverly.
Now, you have to, Tim and Tim, you have to understand that I am a natural blonde. And I'm over 70 now, so be patient with me.
Well, hey, I'm right up there with you. I got my birth certificate to prove it. But anyway, go ahead, Tim. Let's get the ball rolling here, and let's go back to Dallas.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. So, Beverly, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? You said before the show started that you're a Texan, that you catch you bleed Texan. So, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, my blood type is Texan. I've always lived in Texas. I've always had residence in Texas. I have had dual residency in Minnesota twice as my youngest child has had 4 transplants up there, and of course we'd have to live up there for well, the last time 2.5 years, we maintained our residence in Texas too. So I'm full-blooded, red-blooded Texan.
At the time that John F. Kennedy was president, you were living in Dallas?
Oh, yes. Actually in Garland,
Mm-hmm.
suburb of Dallas. And I went to school in Garland, graduated Garland, and I was working at the time of the assassination at the Colony Club, downtown Dallas, which was separated by a parking lot from Jack Ruby's club, the Carousel Club. I'd been singing professionally since the age of 9, and I'm still singing.
And at that time, I guess that probably everybody, at least along in that street, knew everybody. I know that I read that you used to also like perform, sing at private parties that Jack Ruby
yes.
held. Uh-huh. So,
Yes, I did.
yeah, well, now the day of that Kennedy was shot when he visited Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Were you there just because you knew that the president was going to come through there, or possibly had you heard something that that something may be going on?
No, I went strictly because I was very much an admirer of the Kennedys. They were the first. He was the first president, born in my time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a young couple with children, actual children, in the White House. And she was a trendsetter, a beautiful lady. And they were very charismatic. They were very attractive. They were people, even if they hadn't been the president and the first lady, you would have wanted to see.
So you went to Dealey Plaza, and you took along your 8mm film camera.
Yes, it's brand new. My boyfriend had given it to me. He worked for Eastman Kodak, and he'd gone up to New York for a visit and came back with this new camera. It was a prototype camera, and gave it to me with 12 rolls of film and 12 envelopes. So I had to mail them back to Rochester to be developed. And that's what I used that day. And yes, I did know that it worked correctly. I hadn't had any film developed from it yet, but I had made sure that morning, and when I got down to Dealey Plaza, that the camera was in perfect working order, and I had already practiced putting the magazine in and out so that I know how to do everything, because I didn't want to lose anything. I wanted to get a good film of my president, and I think I did.
Well, how long ahead of time did you arrive in the plaza before the motorcade started coming by?
It was probably, I really don't know because I didn't have a watch on that day, but I'm going to say it was probably 15, 20 minutes maybe. And I had taken pictures of the crowd and the buildings, and just like you would if you were standing down there, just all around, took pictures and made sure that the camera was in working order.
Mm-hmm.
What was where you were? Were there a lot of people standing near you?
No, there wasn't. I didn't intend to go to Dealey Plaza whenever I left the parking lot. See, we had parking spaces that we rented by the month, all the show people. And when I got down there the night before I went to a party in Fort Worth, and no, it wasn't at the Cellar Club. And so the next morning when I got back to get my car, I got in the back of my it was an old Buick, and I got in the back of it to get a bag, a straw bag that I knew that I had left in there, to put my camera and an extra roll of film and an extra battery in there in case, something went wrong or I filmed too much or whatever. I just wanted to be prepared. And in that bag was my bikini and some old walking shoes that I had. So I dumped those out in the trunk, and I put my camera and everything in there and got my raincoat. It had been raining. And I got my raincoat out of the back seat of the car, and I took those high heel shoes I had on off and put my walking shoes on, my old ones. And I when I got out of the parking garage, it was cold out, so the wind had started blowing. It was kind of chilly, so I went back and I had my camera over my shoulder. I just put my my coat on over my camera bag and headed down, I guess it would be maybe west on Commerce Street. And I was wanting to just get to the nearest place I could get and get up to the curb and get a picture, get a film of my president. And I walked, and I would look at the side streets as I would walk, and it was just like Texas OU weekend down there that weekend, or worse, actually. There was no way you could get up to the curb on Main Street. There was just too many people. And I kept walking, and I got down to Houston Street. And even a blind could figure out that the motorcade wasn't going to go the way they had advertised, and because the people were lined up. They were lined up down Houston Street and then down Elm Street. I didn't take a mental giant to figure out which way I needed to go. People said, "Well, how did you know?" It was very obvious which way the motorcade was going. And so I made my way across Houston, across the two grassy, I call them triangles, and across down to just a little bit before you got to the concrete steps on the opposite side of where I was standing, on the side that Zapruder was on. And there was two ladies, and there was a gentleman and his son, a little boy, of them, say maybe 7, 8 years old. I don't know how old he was. And then there were some people back in the background, and there was let's see, those are the only ones that I actually have my own memories of. And that's where I decided to stay, because I was right next to the curb. I was right behind Chuck Grimm and his son, and was there because I had started filming whenever the motorcade turned the corner. And so it put me on that side of Chuck Grimm and his son, and Mary Mormon and Gene Hill. But then I evidently walked. I don't recall this, but I evidently walked in concert with the motorcade filming, because at the end of it, you see a picture of me standing on the opposite side of Gene Hill and Mary Mormon.
Now, when the fatal shot rang out, were you looking through the camera at that point?
Yes, I was.
And
I didn't take.
Yeah. What exactly did you see? What exactly did you see?
Well, I started filming, like I said, when I had the motorcycle started to turn onto Elm Street, and just as they turned onto Elm Street, just as the Continental had only, I don't know how far down it was. It wasn't very far, maybe three car lengths down. There was a noise that went bang, 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 and I thought that someone had allowed children to bring those, we used to call them poppers. You didn't have to lie about anything, you just threw them up against something hard and they'd pop. Yeah. And I distinctly remember thinking, why would somebody let their children bring something like that down to a place like this on a day like this? And just as the president then went past me, was just a little bit to my left, there was a someone bang, bang, or boom. And when the boom happened, the whole, he went back against the seat, violently back against the seat, and it looked like a whole bucket of blood was thrown out the back of his head of the car.
Oh, boy.
And I guess that must be when I went into shock, because the rest of the pictures, I'm standing there with my camera to my chest, and people asked me, did I go across the street? I didn't for a while. They're asking things like, did the limousine stop? And I said, I don't know. I can't tell you that, because the whole world stopped for me. And that's what happened. It was just like a moment in time that just stood still. And at some point in time, which couldn't have been too long, probably it seemed like forever, it's probably just seconds, that I finally walked across the street, and there was a group of people gathered down at the foot of the stairs, the concrete stairs that go up the snow. And I went there and stood there for a while thinking, and there's pictures of me standing there, and that's where you can see my shoes, and I still have those shoes today. So for those naysayers that think that wasn't me, I have the shoes on that I had on that day, and they match exactly my little deformed foot that I had. And I stood there thinking, they're going to want to talk to me in a minute. And So I just stood there, and I don't know how long I had been there, not very long, when I made eye contact with a policeman I knew that worked for the Dallas Police Department. His name was Roscoe White, and he was coming down the knoll from the pergola area. And I thought, okay, he saw me, I saw him. I didn't know him real well. His wife was Geneva White, and she was the hostess for Jack Ruby. I knew her far better than I did her husband, but at that time I really only knew him as Geneva White's husband. But I know for sure it was him because I was used to seeing him dressed the way he was that day. He would come to pick her up at night, and he'd park on the curb at Commerce, which he wasn't supposed to, take his gun belt off, take his hat off, and go upstairs to wait for his wife to get off work. And that's the way he was dressed that day. He had on policeman's pants, policeman's shirt. He had his badge on, but he didn't have on a gun belt. He didn't have on a hat. And so when we made eye contact, I felt the liberty to leave, thinking, okay, if they do want to talk to me for whatever reason, he knows where to find me. Because that was the day, and kids don't understand this nowadays, but that was the days before cell phones and even CD radios, and it was even before that. So I had no way of knowing what had happened to my president. So I rushed back to my car, and I got in my car, and like I said, it was an old Buick, and I started home. I went down Jackson Street to 75 and turned north on 75, and there used to be an old Holiday Inn out there that was one of those rambling ones that just went on forever, one story. And just as I got to that exit, I heard on my, because my radio wouldn't work downtown. The old timey kind, you had to have that antenna, and my antenna was broke, so it didn't work very well downtown. It worked okay out there. And just as I got to the exit to get off for that hotel, I heard that the president was dead. And it shook me up so bad. I pulled off at that Holiday Inn, and I stayed there for several minutes just crying. I was scared. Didn't know what was happening to our world. I mean, that was a tragedy for a 17-year-old. To see the president's head blown off right in front of you, and brains and blood and everything laying all over the back of the car in the street. And it was bad.
Now, I guess you're best known for the scarf that you're wearing. Did you wear a babushka almost every day? I mean, was that something pretty common?
Yes, I did. And if you look at the film and the pictures, you'll see several women down there with babushkas on. It was windy. It had been raining, and my hair had to, even though I had on a dark wig that day, my hair still had to look nice enough for the stage that night. And I just wore them. I still wear them occasionally.
Mm-hmm. Did you keep that one from that dreadful day?
No, I did. I kept my coat and everything. But when I got married, I moved my stuff into a storage building at my mom and dad's house, and I'd kind of like forgotten where I put it. I wasn't. Like I said, I was 17 when it happened. I really wasn't aware of historical importance and stuff. I wasn't in that train of thought then, like I am now. Gosh, I wish I'd done a lot of things differently. And I put it out there in a box, and I guess it was March the 14th, 1994, my daddy died, or 93. My daddy died. And my brothers and sisters went and closed the house down in the storage building and everything because I was out of town singing. And my brother called me and he said, "Beth, babe." And I said, "What?" He said, "We found a box out here that we think is your stuff." And I said, "Well, what's in it?" And he said, "There's some dishes in there." And I said, "Uh-huh." And he said, "And there's a pair of black shoes, old scarred up black shoes in there." And he said, "And there's something tan in there. It's been chewed up by the mice, and something kind of a cream color, lacy looking thing been chewed up by the mice." And I knew right then what it was.
Yeah. Well, I know I've had stuff in storage too. I have a small publishing company, and we used to keep them the books and all in storage. And the mice after a while would get into everything. I mean, they really just did a number, and then you got the weather to contend with. You know, I mean,
And
most
then
of these
too,
stories.
back then,
It was in a. Yeah. Anyway, so now.
we didn't.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead. Back then, we didn't have those plastic nice boxes like they do now. That I have everything that I have in my storage buildings here. It's all in nice plastic storage boxes.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have those back then. It was cardboard.
So now, okay, going back to okay. So did the police ever come to interview? The FBI did talk to you, right?
Yes, when I went to work Monday night, they didn't talk to me when I went to work. When I went to work Monday night, I got there about 7:45, and I can say that pretty assuredly because that's what time I went to work every night. That's what time I got there. And I had my makeup kit with me, which was the train case to the Samsonite luggage. As a matter of fact, I still have one today. And all of us girls carried them with our makeup in it. So we didn't get our makeup on and stuff till we went to work. She wanted to be fresh when on stage, and plus she wore different kind of makeup on stage than you do, all that. And so I had my makeup case with me, and I didn't even carry a purse. My little wallet, everything I needed was right there in that little case. And so when you went to the Colony Club, you went up a flight of stairs, and then there was a landing and another flight of stairs into the club. And I noticed these two men standing on the landing, but it didn't concern me because oftentimes people would wait there for their parties to catch up with them. But as I made it to the landing, the taller of the two guys said, "Miss Oliver." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, he had proper FBI identification. His name was Regis Kennedy. And he said, he said, "We understand that you were down." They didn't call it the Plaza. He said, "The grassy place. You were down at the grassy place when the president was killed." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "We understand you were taking pictures." I said, "No, I was taking a film." He said, "Have you had those film developed?" Well, he knew I hadn't had them developed because they had an APB out for anything to do with this assassination. I didn't know that then. I know that's something I've learned since. But he asked me if I had them developed, and I said, "No." He said, "Where are they?" I said, "They're in my camera." He said, "Where is your camera?" I said, "It's right here in my makeup kit."
All right, Beverly, let me interrupt you here because we have to go to our bottom of the hour break. Great place to pause the story. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Beverly Oliver and what happened to her film.
Now back to exploring the bizarre with two of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal. Your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
All right, welcome back to more Exploring the Bizarre. I'm Tim Swartz. Tonight we are talking with Beverly Oliver Massagee. Is it Massagee or Massagee, Beverly?
Massagee.
Massagee. All right.
Thank you. Massagee.
Okay, thank you. Well, as anybody who listens to the show know that I have a tendency sometimes to massacre names, especially. So
well, so do I. That's why I let you do the introductions. Well, I must say that this is a bit of history, if there ever was one. I mean, we have people on here, Bev, that talk about everything from UFOs to Bigfoot to the Great Pyramid, but we do an occasional. Well, I guess I would classify this as a conspiracy show. But in fact, let's find out: was the Kennedy assassination, in your mind, a conspiracy, or was Lee Harvey Oswald the sole gunman? I mean, you were right there.
In my own personal opinion, and I think that's what you're asking for, because I'm not a researcher, I'm just an eyewitness.
Yeah.
I know without a shadow of a doubt that the shot came from behind the picket fence area and hit the president in the soft palate of his head, his right temple, and continued to travel and blew out the whole back of his head. It blew out the side temple and continued to travel and blew out the whole back of his head. When Jackie Kennedy was crawling out over the back of the trunk, she was crawling out to get a piece of his skull that was laying on that trunk. Ugh. And according to Clint Hill, her Secret Service man that climbed in and laid on top of them until they got to Parkland. He said she tried to piece his head back together all the way.
Oh, poor thing.
Now, did you see anyone on that grassy knoll that you thought didn't belong there, or anybody that looked suspicious? There's supposedly, wasn't there a woman at the time that the shots rang out that put up her umbrella, even though, well, you did say it was raining though.
That was
It
a
was
man.
a
That was a
man.
man who did that. Yeah.
Oh, it was a man.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah. The Umbrella Man. That's very famous.
Yeah. And so if the shots that I know for sure came from the picket fence area, then that means conspiracy, because Oswald was not behind the picket fence. Oswald was not on the 6th floor either. We know from eyewitnesses that talked to him, saw him there, witnessed him there. He was on the 2nd floor in the lunchroom when it happened.
Beverly, you made a comment earlier that I guess that the papers had published the president's route, but it turned out that they didn't follow that route.
No, and there's nothing sinister about that, okay? People try to make something sinister about that. But if you go even today, straight down Commerce, today we're going to go down. They went down Elm Street and was going to get up on the street, I forget what it's called now, to go to the World Trade Center. Okay, if you go straight on Commerce Street, you cannot get on Stemmons. You have to go down and do a U-turn and come back. The only way you can get on Stemmons from downtown Dallas is on Elm Street.
So anybody who knows Dallas knows that was the route that they would have to take.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
now if there were other people there behind the fence that were responsible for the shots, how many people do you think that there might have been? Could you tell? And in what direction would they have gone off in? I mean, would their escape have been relatively easy?
The escape would have been easy. They have found a picture off of a film that a guy, I can't think of his name, Hughes. Somebody named Hughes took a film, and they took a still off of his film that has a policeman back there dressed exactly like I told them 55 years ago, almost now, that Roscoe White was dressed like. And because, behind the picket fence was the parking lot and the train tracks and the train cars. And so, it would have been easy to get away from back there.
And what was did you talk to other people that were in the crowd at the time? I mean, were people milling around and?
No, after it happened, it was absolutely pandemonium, and everybody was in shock. People were crying, and it wasn't a time, you're going to change pleasantries. And it wasn't something that any of us wanted to talk about, because, like me, I still couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it until I heard the radio announcement on 75 that he was dead. It's something that you can't even begin to imagine, that this could happen in broad daylight in Dallas, Texas, on Elm Street, downtown. I mean, Dallas back then was, you could walk downtown 3 o'clock in the morning and not have to worry about it.
Now, you say, okay, go ahead, Tim. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask Beverly, how do you think that the FBI was able to track you down so quickly to your workplace? Because you said you came in and there was already a couple of guys there waiting for you.
Well, that was on Monday night, the 25th, that they confiscated my film. And that was because Roscoe White made eye contact with me, and Roscoe White had FBI connections. You need to study Roscoe White.
Okay.
Make a FOIA request for his file, and you'll get all blacked out pages.
So then these FBI agents they asked for your film.
Yes, and I have a document in my files where it says it talks about the lady in the brown coat. It was sent out that morning of the 25th. The woman in the brown coat taking film pictures exactly when the time the president was killed. I have that in my files. It's an FBI document. And anyway, so when I went to work that night and he asked me where it was, I said, it's here in my makeup kit. And he said, well, we want to take those film and develop them and get them back to you and look at them for evidence, and we'll get them back to you in a few days.
Fun. Well, famous last words in the case of the FBI, that's for sure.
Yeah. But laying right next to that camera in my makeup kit was a Prince Albert can full of marijuana.
Oh.
And as you know, Candy Bar had been sentenced to 15 years for less than a half ounce.
Yep.
So I stooped down and I opened up the lid to my train case and lifted it where it folded back toward him, but the makeup tray with one hand and the camera with the other, switched them out and handed him the camera and put the tray back in and shut that case because I didn't want him to find it. And so now you'll read in different people's books and stuff where they took my camera. They didn't take my camera. My camera was stolen out of a storage building in 1977.
Mm.
But they took my film out, and he said, well, we'll get it back to you in 10 days or so. And so that was November the 25th, 1963, 7:45 in the evening, and no one's seen it since. There's people who say they have seen it in different people's offices in Washington. I do have another document that admits, it says, it's another FBI document, Treasury Department. It says, the film which was taken, not claimed to have been, not supposedly been, but the film which was taken by Beverly Oliver was not retained by this office.
Mm.
So
was
they
not
admitted right there they had it. Huh?
Was not retained? Is that what you said? Not retained?
Was not retained by this office. So what did they do? Take it across the hall so they could say that, or
they handed it off to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not in their file. I mean, we see this all the time. We investigate UFOs and stuff, and people are always getting their films. Sometimes they get the film back with some frames missing. Well, in fact, didn't Zapruder? Didn't they claim that some of the actual frames have been snipped out?
Yeah, there's people who say that the film was quite considerably altered.
Yeah, doctored. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so now, have you ever speculated on who might have been responsible?
Responsible?
Yeah, for the assassination.
I think it was rogue elements with. You're not going to want me to say this on the radio with what's going on in our country now, but I think that
you
it
could
was
say
rogue
anything you
within
want.
our government. It was rogue. Well, it was rogue elements within our government.
Yeah, but can you be a little bit more specific than that?
CIA,
yeah. Do you think it had anything to do with Castro?
I don't think so.
No.
I think it had to do with Kennedy doing away with the Vietnamese War. He was de-escalating the war. What does war mean to America? It means money. And he was de-escalating the war. He was doing away with ground troops. He was doing away with the Federal Reserve Bank. He had taken all of our money in and called all the bills in. And he'd taken United States notes, Federal Reserve notes off of the bills and put United States notes on it. One of the first things that LBJ did was call the money back in and give it back to the Federal Reserve. Our money's not backed up with anything. It's not backed up with copper. Forget silver.
Do you think Lyndon Johnson somehow played a part in this?
Of course he did. Of course he did. Who had the most to gain by the president's death?
Well, but that's yeah. I guess in a sense he did. I mean, since he was vice president, yeah.
He and J. Edgar Hoover. It involved the military-industrial complex.
Of course, Eisenhower had warned of that when he left the day he left office. He warned of the military industrial. Yeah. In fact, a very strong statement. I just saw that the the other night. Well, what was Jack Ruby's part in this, do you think?
Jack Ruby is a very interesting character. Now, the Jack Ruby I knew is not the Jack Ruby y'all read about. He did have a violent temper, but I never saw it displayed against a woman in my life. And it'd be stupid to do that. They had to get up at night and take her clothes off. You know, you're going to stand up and watch a bruised woman dance. He was very, I don't know what the word is, complex in his personality. He could be such a gentleman and then turn around if something didn't go his way with a guy in the club and be a bear. And when you start to study him and study him a long way back, he was OSI in Chicago.
Well, how did he end up owning a club then in Dallas? That seems quite a different turn of events.
He still had agency connections at the time of the assassination, and that has been proven. And the way that I found out, I couldn't remember the name of the guy that took my film, but Gary Shaw, y'all mentioned him in the intro. When he was interviewing me, he brought a book, 4 books, I think it was, they were mug books, and asking me to pick out people that I knew that was some in the clubs back in those days. And it was a mug book. It didn't say FBI agent or policeman or club owner or stripper. It was just people's pictures, not their names or anything. And in the 3rd book, I don't know which book it was in, when we got to Regis Kennedy's picture, I said, that is the man that took my film that night. Mm-hmm. He said, are you sure? I said, I'm positive that's the man that took my film. And he was an FBI agent, a field agent that was sent in Monday morning or Monday afternoon to help with the case.
So do you think, okay, so Jack Ruby might have been involved in this. Do you think that he was under some like Manchurian Candidate or mind control, or did he do this because he had some, personal reason?
I think he
did he really
think he was ordered to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was ordered to do it because he knew Oswald before the assassination, because I was introduced to him 2 to 3 weeks prior to the assassination as Beverly. This is my friendly Oswald. He's with the CIA. At 17, I didn't know what the CIA was. I'm in my 70s now. I still don't know what the CIA is. But back then, when I told people that, they looked at me like, "Oh yeah, sure," you know. Well, now it's not so hard to believe that anymore, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. Mm-hmm. But now, okay, so you say you met Oswald.
Yes, I did. 2 to 3 weeks prior to the assassination. I saw him in the club more than that.
Yeah. And did you have a conversation with him at all, or?
No, I was going to the Alabama that night with Jada, who was Jack's star headliner dancer. We were friends, and there was a club called the Alabama that had a band all night. You could go dance there after hours, and we used to go 2 or 3 times a week. But I had a headache that night, so I was just going to go over, and we staggered our shows. So there was 3 clubs downtown. There was the Colony Club, and the Theater Lounge, and then the Carousel. And all 3 of us staggered the shows so the patrons could make all 3 shows. And so after I got through singing, I got my clothes on and went over after the last show and was just going to tell Jada I just couldn't go. You know, I just didn't feel like going. And they were sitting at the corner of the runway, and Jada was sitting at the end chair. Then there was a vacant chair to her left, and that vacant chair to the left was Jack, and then next to the left of Jack was a man I didn't know. And when I got up to the table, Jack stood up to pull my chair out. He was that kind of a gentleman, and he pulled my chair out, and as I was sitting down in the chair, he said, "By the way, Beverly, this is my friend Lee Oswald. He's with the CIA." Well, he was watching the girls. That's what he was there for, and he this is going to sound kind of snotty, but this is the way I was back then. He wasn't particularly good looking. He didn't seem to have a very good personality, and he didn't look like he had any money, so I didn't have anything to say to him.
Now, was he fairly well like known well, he was involved in all kinds of political movements and things. Was
Not
he
in
doing
Dallas.
that? Not in Dallas. He wasn't handing out. That was when he was in New Orleans, I
That
guess,
was in
right?
New Orleans, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He wasn't. He wasn't handing out leaflets or anything along that line. It
But
sounds almost like he had switched his personality from a supporter of uh, Cuba to somebody who was a member of some government agency. Well, that's what they do. I mean, there's no
well,
doubt
at the
about
end
that. You know. Yeah.
in 1975, there when Geraldo Rivera on his nighttime program, Good Night America, I think it was called, and he showed the Zapruder film for the first time. He was also told about. He also interviewed a couple of weeks after that a guy named Wally Weston, who was the MC at the Carousel Club, and he told him, Wally told Geraldo how he hit Oswald in the mouth one night in the club because Oswald told him in the middle of his monologue, "I think you're an effing communist." And what Oswald didn't know was that he was a lightweight boxing champion. And Wally said, "What did you say?" And he said, "I said, I think you're an effing communist." Well, that was the worst thing you could say to somebody in 1963. I mean,
I
there
guess
wasn't
so,
anything
right?
worse that you could say.
Uh,
And Wally just put the mic down, hopped off the stage, went over there, and just cold cocked him right in the mouth.
huh.
So
now,
yeah, he
have
was in
your
it.
have your opinions on all of this? I mean, having lived through it, has anything changed over the years?
It's gotten worse, gotten sneakier. I don't, I don't think you want me to go into that part. I really don't, because I'm very, very verbal and I'm very controversial about it. Like, for instance, if you think I think that Judge Scalia died of natural causes, you've got another thing coming. I just don't believe it.
Who died of natural causes?
Judge Scalia.
Judge Scalia.
Oh, I don't. Who knows? I mean, how about Foster? Was it Foster Dulles that was supposedly pushed out the window? Yeah. Tim, is that right?
James
Did what?
Forrestal. James
Yeah,
Forrestal.
Forrestal. Yeah, I always get the two of them confused. He was in a hotel room in New York or something, right? And there was an agent in the room with him, and all of a sudden he was on the sidewalk.
Are you talking about James Foster?
Yeah, that happened. Gosh, I think that happened even before the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
Oh, it did. Yeah. By all means.
Yeah. Well, okay. I have a question. We only have unfortunately 4 minutes left. But when did you find out, Beverly, that people were looking at the Zapruder film and wondering who you were?
I never did really find out. I'll tell you exactly how it happened. I was singing in revival in Joshua, Texas, where Gary Shaw was a member of the church. Jerry Wayne Bernard was the music director of that week. And I had gotten there just in time to run over my songs with him for that night. And back then, I was single, and I stayed in people's homes because I didn't want somebody saying they saw me coming out of a motel with a man or something. And Mr. Shaw came in the back door of the church, and Jerry Wayne Bernard, who's Crystal Bernard's daddy, said, "Hey, Beverly, why don't you tell Brother Shaw where you were when Kennedy was killed?" And so I just sat down and told him. It wasn't like I was trying to hide. I just didn't know who to talk to. I was waiting on him to bring my film back. So I told him what happened and everything. The more I talked, the bigger his eyes got. And guess whose house I was staying at that week? Gary Shaw's house. And that's how it happened.
So all those years, you had no idea that people were speculating on your identity.
It was 6 years.
Yeah.
That was 6 years.
6 years.
And I didn't. I didn't know that anybody was investigating it or anything. I didn't know who to talk to. I did know that several people had died, and I was scared to death. I was absolutely, totally scared to death. My boss, Abe Weinstein, saying, he told me, don't you dare. He said, there's people in here, and I forget who they were. They were with different big television programs. He said, don't you dare talk to them. And I didn't. Because I was scared. And I'm telling you, there's times now, 54 years later, almost 55 years later, that I still get scared.
Do you think all those documents will ever really be released? I mean, they were supposed to be, and then it turned out that they weren't. 3
presidential orders, and they're still not out. No, I don't think so.
Oh boy!
And what they do, when they do release them, they're so redacted.
I know. Yeah, my goodness. Yeah. Hey, we're just running up to the time here, but you have a book out?
Yes, I do. It's been out since '94, and it's still selling. Nightmare in Dallas.
Nightmare in Dallas, and you're affiliated with a website?
Yes, CMDSINC at earthlink.net.
Mm-hmm. And what will we find on there?
No, wait a minute. That's the email address. Never mind. It's I don't even know what it is.
Well, we've got a link. Yeah, we've got a link on our website, Beverly. But thank you very much for being with us tonight. This has just been absolutely fascinating, and maybe we can have you on again sometime and talk some more.
Yeah, be well. Stay well, Beth. Stay well. Stay well.
Right. You stay well.
Right.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe, exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of Exploring the Bizarre. And Tim, our first guest, Beverly Massagee, fascinating story.
Indeed. I don't think we've ever covered the JFK assassination before, and to have a person who was there in Daley Plaza at the time and had her film confiscated by government agents and never returned. It almost sounds like it could be a UFO movie.
Very much so. Well, there's been a lot of people who have compared the two. The UFO phenomenon, the conspiracy to silence it, and the JFK assassination. There's a lot of similarities with the way.
Well, in fact, I guess Tim, there are some people who believe that the reason that JFK was assassinated was because he was about to tell the truth about MJ-12. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but there are some documents that I've seen floating away that tie in with Marilyn Monroe, and supposedly JFK had told Marilyn Monroe about all of this. And of course, Dorothy Kilgallen, the famous journalist, was involved in this too. And they're all dead.
Yeah.
And if we don't watch our step, whatever. Anyway,
okay,
yeah.
Tim. All right. Well, now for the second hour, we have as our guest Cody Knox. Now, Cody is a director, producer, writer, and actor. He's a native of Taylorstown, Pennsylvania, and he previously served as the editor of the Weekly Recorder, a newspaper covering Pennsylvania and national politics, which helped free 2 individuals who had been wrongly accused of murder. Now, as a filmmaker, Knotts has produced and directed the films Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies. That's right up our alley.
We should have had that. We had a show on pro wrestling just a couple of weeks ago. We should have had you on then. Yeah.
And Gore Orphanage. I love that title, Gore Orphanage. And Cody is currently working on Kecksburg, which is inspired by the real life events of December 9th, 1965, and one of America's most mysterious UFO incidents. And Knox describes the film as sci-fi horror. So now Knox says that our goal is to bring the events to life about the Kecksburg UFO. And he said that eyewitness stated that they saw alien bodies removed and we believe them versus what the government says. So, Cody, thank you very much for being with us tonight on Exploring the Bizarre. Oh,
thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we kind of do the same kind of work as you. I'm Mr. Creepo. We've made a few horror movies in our time, like Barely Legal Vampires, and what's the other? The Skin Eating Jungle Vampires. That's my favorite, actually.
I started to say I thought Sandy Hook, Lingerie Party Massacre, is your favorite.
Well, that was a good one too, but we had to change. We changed the name. When we re-released it, because a lot of people thought that we were trying to do, I don't know, a parody or well, it all goes back to Alex Jones and him stating something about what was in our movie, some synchronicity or whatever it was. But that's for another show and another time. But yeah, we've dabbled in horror films as well. So when did you first get behind the camera, Cody?
It would have been about, let's see, it was right after a failed race for State House. So I ran for state legislature in Pennsylvania and needed to, I always say it's a big midlife crisis. So I needed to make a lot of changes in life.
Oh, so you weren't a young aspiring film director. That usually the first horror films are made rather young. I mean, it sounds like you were a wee bit older.
I was a politician. So I was a newspaper editor and I'd run for State House twice in Pennsylvania and barely lost both times. And so I needed a change in life. I actually, when helping the men out of jail for murder, I risked my life dealing with a DA that was one of the suspects in a district attorney was a suspect in a double homicide. So, like I said, it's the ultimate midlife crisis, but needed a total change in direction in life.
So, had you always been a fan of horror films? I mean, what of all the genres
I loved horror
that you
films.
could have picked? Yeah.
I love film. I mean, it pretty much.
Yeah.
Horror, and the reason we chose horror films was because if you look at the market, the only way you can go anywhere initially is either you make feel-good Christian films or horror films. And even though I'm a believer, I don't like films where the bad guy is better than anybody I know in real life. I find that very cheesy and not worth watching. So I needed to make something that I cared about.
Had you always had an interest in UFOs, or was it just an interest in Kecksburg? I mean, how did you get involved in all of that?
Oh, I've always been interested in UFOs. UFOs are fascinating. The fact that there is the unknown, that to me, it's obviously there might be something out there. And, we would see stuff on the farm. We had an 80-acre farm, and we would see unidentified flying objects. And so that was a fascination. And then when I saw Unsolved Mysteries, when Robert Stack was talking about Kecksburg, that got my dad and I's attention when I was young.
About how old were you at that time? Were you a teenager? Or?
I think that was like 82, so I'd have been like, 14.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of funny, but that's when a lot of our friends and fellow associates who are on the program from time to time, we all seem to have got interested around the age of 14. I had gone out and bought a mimeograph machine and was putting out my first newsletter when I was 14 years old. It was called the Interplanetary News Service Report. But Kecksburg is and over the years, I edited UFO Review, which was the official flying saucer newspaper, and I was editor for 11 years of UFO Universe magazine, which was sold, worldwide on the newsstands before uh, all magazines went the way of the dinosaur. I mean, actually, that's a pretty pretty terrible thing to happen. I mean, because I'm a big, I like ink on paper, and the leafing through a book and a magazine and all of that. I'm not too big on the electronic books, but I shouldn't say that because they are increasingly a larger portion of our sales. But okay, so how close do you live to Kecksburg?
Well, I used to live until we moved in January. We lived about 30 minutes from Kecksburg, but my wife was hired as the music director at Most Holy Trinity at West Point. So we moved to West Point. So I actually live at the U.S. Military Academy.
So up until
go ahead,
I was going to say up until then, I mean, when you were 14 and saw the story on Unsolved Mystery, you had never heard of the Kecksburg incident?
I had not, and I actually at that point I lived probably an hour and a half from there. So when I met my wife, I moved. She lived close to Kecksburg, so I moved there. But I had heard nothing, and so when this came on, and I saw the military moving the vehicle, the object and all of that, that was fascinating. I mean, it was a local mystery, and that made it even neater. And then the stuff that's come later, like the Hillary Clinton demanded the records, and she filed a Freedom of Information request in 2016 while running for president, and wasn't given the records. They said they no longer exist. And so those type of things just add to the mystery. I mean, the Podesta, I know a lot of people don't like John Podesta, but the fact that he couldn't get the records when working in the Clinton White House. Those things deeply bother me.
Now,
and I worked in politics.
Do you find that this is a unique case, and if so, what makes it unique to you?
Well, I think the political aspect, the fact that we are 50 some years removed from the incident, and there is no reason that somebody one thing I know in politics is if you tell me one thing, which was at first it's a meteor, then you tell me it's a Russian satellite, and then okay, you have a presidential candidate and former first lady, former senator asking for the records. You couldn't find someone more politically powerful other than now President Trump, and you say, you know what, we don't have them. That tells me there's something that they don't want people to know. And why do we not want them to know this many years later? I mean, part of it, I know they play these games where sometimes the objects we see are things that they're testing. And that's clearly the military has done that for years. But they're supposed to, after 25 years, be releasing this information. Obviously, they keep reclassifying. But that's also wrong. I mean, it's a government for the people, by the people, and of the people. And sometimes they need to be reminded that this is our government. And we bring those type of themes into the film. I mean, it was very intentional that it's these people that are running things need to be reminded that they work for us, not the other way around.
Have you ever talked to any of the witnesses personally?
I have, and I've talked to Bob Gaddy, who was one of the reporters who just recently, and Bob's a great guy. And they find us. I mean, what I find really funny is there's this legendary Three Boys in the Woods, which we made part of the film. Everybody and their brother claims they're the guys in the woods. I mean, there's so many people that are, 53 years ago, I was that person in the woods. There's a part of me that wants to add at the very end of the film, after the credits, a whole bunch of people standing in the woods staring at it. Almost like an inside joke, because it's there's a lot of things that people claim they saw. My wife the other day said, well, when I was a child, I watched the Space Shuttle Challenger blow up when it happened. You didn't, because it wasn't on television. They showed it after it blew up. But people create this impression in their mind that they were there. In Pittsburgh, everybody saw the Immaculate Reception. Everybody saw it, but the game was actually blacked out. And almost everybody was at the stadium had left. They had less than 10,000 people there at the point that happened. But everybody claims they were there and saw it. So that's it's one of the problems with eyewitness testimony. And I come from an investigative reporter standpoint, and that's probably why the story interests me. Is John Murphy dying from investigating this, and so that's why he's our main character.
And is that he died? Okay, so he was with the. Is he the fellow that was with the local radio station?
He was the radio reporter, and he's the one who wouldn't let go of it and did the special, the Object in the Sky, and ends up being killed by a hit and run, as does Mr. Betters. I can always get him and his brother mixed up, Gary and the other one. But Mr. Betters also dies and doesn't let go of this. He does the notarized picture that he did for Stan Gordon of what he saw that night, and he also is hit by a mysterious hit and run, and it's an unsolved one. So you have two people dying, and we created a character based on the African Americans that were there and their involvement, because sometimes they get forgotten.
Well, what is so essential about the Kecksburg incident that people would have to die? I mean, there were a lot of UFO sightings. I mean, some people maybe have died under mysterious circumstances, but for the most part, people that see UFOs are not run over by hit and run drivers or anything like that. Although John Mack was, when he was in England, of course, he was the Harvard professor who was deeply involved in the UFO abduction phenomena, and he stepped off the curb.
Yeah, that's the $24 million question. And what's so secret? One of the things we did when we first started publicizing this, we had Hillary Clinton's picture and said, "What's so secret she can't know?" I mean, and so it keeps leading back to dead people and a secret that we can't even let the Clintons know. So obviously something went down there. Obviously it was something important, and the military responded. And if you knew the road network, they got there rather quickly. And so one of the neat things we've done recently is, when looking at it, I mean, we're not doing a documentary, we're doing a feature story. We're myth telling.
Right.
So as far as real people, John Murphy's the only person based on a real person. The African American character that's inspired by Jerry Betters we gave him the name Clutch Carson, and even in that we take some liberties. Because to make the story work, for example, Murphy, as far as we know, wasn't a veteran, but someone his age would have generally been a veteran in World War II. We wanted to show the juxtaposition between these men who fought in World War II and a government that wants to lie to them. That's not what they were fighting in the war for. So we made him a veteran because most of those men would have been. And we made.
Are you shooting? Are you shooting in Kecksburg?
We recently filmed a part of a scene because we've been raising money, and we've been, and we want to make this done, make it right. And the most expensive part of the filming is still to come. We have shot about 38% of the film. We shot one of the scenes in Kecksburg with the three boys in the woods. We actually shot where they would have been as they were heading towards the object. And while we were filming, and this is really funny, they had 3 tornadoes hit the area. They hadn't had tornadoes in years, and they had 3 tornadoes hit the area while we were filming, and they were all within a mile of us, surrounding us. So we just kept filming because we couldn't go anywhere. We were there with the volunteer fire department, so the emergency personnel was with us. And so there was nothing we could do at that point except wait until that was done. We found out some neat stuff when you film with tornadoes nearby. The atmospherics interfere with digital cameras. I did not know. I mean, I had no idea, because how many people go out there? I mean, sure, guys that chase storms. So we have a couple shots where it's really weird because there's like weird wavy lines in the backdrop, and the sound on that singular scene we'll have to ADR, because there's no way you're going to get good sound with tornadoes nearby. That's not going to happen. no matter what you do. And so we can hear them, which is a positive, but it would be deafening in a theater. So that'll all get cleaned up. But so we did film there. We're planning on filming some more there. The rest of the time we've been filming in locations in West Virginia. And partly because we think there's a tie into West Virginia. I mean, everybody says that this object went to Wright-Patterson. And I don't have any doubt that it ended up there. But they thought it was driven on a truck across the road. Everyone saw it. We don't have people seeing it. And it wouldn't have made sense to take it that way when they could have taken it down to the Army base in Preston County, West Virginia, which is only like 30 minutes away, which is where we do a lot of black ops anyways, and fly the thing out from there. They could have just got it to the Camp Dawson. Had to think for a second. If they got it to Camp Dawson and we do black ops out of there, why wouldn't we then fly it directly from there to Wright-Patterson Road and drive it down a road?
Well,
now, I think that's been missed.
Yeah, isn't one of the strange things about this case is that it seems like the military knew that this was coming down there. I mean, weren't they on
They got there way
location?
too fast.
Way
They
too
came down
fast,
Route
right?
51, and I mean, it's built up more today, but the ability to get to this rural location that fast, they would have had been tracking it and knew where it was going down and had them on the move. And you're talking about Army Reserve units. And if you watch people muster, especially reserve units, they don't muster as fast. They don't get in the trucks. They don't move what you would expect. Movies make us have a different impression of what happens in reality. Yeah. They should come, and we were just at the church watching the cadets line up, and I said, well, you can see why they train for this, because they're learning and they're not moving very fast. They will move faster when they have been doing it for a while.
Now, do you think that NORAD had picked this up, or was it predetermined?
We know that they were following it coming in over Detroit, because it was reported when the object was coming in and how it passed over Detroit. So they absolutely by that point knew where it was going. So they probably calculated the trajectory and guessed. But to be there as quick as they were, someone did a fabulous job. And it can be done. I mean, but you can miss too. We just did. I got to film a balloon test where it went up into the atmosphere and exploded and then comes down. It was the physics department of West Point does that. And when we were filming it, we were chasing it in cars. And one of the two balloons, we were to calculate where it was going to land almost within a quarter mile to a half mile. The other one was off. So, we were racing behind this, and it was moving faster than we could go in a vehicle on roads in New York. And that wasn't in New York City. It was in upstate New York. So you can really fly. But the speed of some things, and obviously this thing was going much, much faster than these balloons would be going.
Now, do you think that this was a projectile, or was it something that was being flown?
Well, the eyewitness accounts talk about it making maneuvers. So, we worked for the film off of that premise. We were keeping it secret that in the film it was aliens, but we had a unique thing happen. The Ray Bradbury Museum in Chicago, which is going to open, needed alien suits. They needed an alien for their display at Comic-Con. And we sent them the suit from the film. So being able to tie in with Ray Bradbury's museum was just way too much to pass up. And they had the suit at Comic-Con. So we sent the suit out to San Diego, and it's on display right now, actually. So we could no longer keep it secret what the alien looked like or any of that, because we decided, okay, we're never going to get when you do an independent film, you don't get to be tied in with Ray Bradbury or
for sure,
have something at Comic-Con. And so we took this opportunity and said, let's go for it.
Well, yours isn't the kind of movie where the alien remains a mystery. Anyway, I mean, it's secondary, I'm sure, to the actual story and the build up to that.
It is absolutely the aliens are. This is about when we filmed the scenes with Lyndon Johnson. And again, we took liberties. In real life, he flew the head of NASA into his ranch. We decided visually the ranch would be kind of a boring setting. We decided to have him at a political fundraiser because then we could have more dynamic movement until he leaves. And then he meets with the head of Men in Black, and we decided this fundraiser would be with former Senator Robert Byrd, the late Robert Byrd, which was a tie-in to West Virginia. And which is very close to Kecksburg. I mean, the two states are Kecksburg's near the West Virginia border, 30 minutes.
All right, Cody, let me interrupt you here because we have to go to our bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we will continue more about the Kecksburg film with Cody.
Now back to exploring the bizarre with two of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal. Your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
And welcome back to Exploring the Bizarre. I'm Tim Swartz, and we're at the final segment of our show, and we're talking with filmmaker Cody Knox about his film currently in production. The title is Kecksburg. Now, is that going to be your final title, or is that just your working title, Cody?
That is our working title, but that's our plan. I mean, we've made T-shirts and different things based on it. But, it could end up being Object in the Sky or somewhere along the line. Because when you sell it to distribution, they make the changes they want to make. And you don't have a lot of control over that. You just kind of accept it and go, that's what it is.
Right. And now, as you said, this is a film. It's not a documentary. So what's going to be? And I don't want you to have to reveal any spoilers or anything like that. But what's going to be in this film that separates it from just like a standard documentary about Kecksburg?
Well, the focus is on the reporter John Murphy and this conflict that goes on between our government and our citizens and our soldiers and our people who. And the decisions our government make, which is why filming the scenes with LBJ and Senator Byrd, and Senator Byrd is there to represent the audience or the senators and the people who are duly elected by the people who believe they're doing the right thing and have no idea that this secret government is happening. And so I think it's very timely to today. I mean, and the president's having to make a call. And in the room is himself in the middle, and he's being pulled between Senator Byrd and General Martin, who's we based another person, based on a real person, General Martin of Pennsylvania, who is heading the Men in Black. And we did something different with the Men in Black. The Men in Black are based upon the head of it is not some person no one's ever met, but in real life it would be a politician and a general. We went looking for a politician and a general. And there was Eisenhower and General Martin, both from Pennsylvania. And obviously Eisenhower's too well known, so we said it would have to be someone people don't really remember. And so we chose Edward Martin. And we thought that was kind of a neat choice. He's also from where I grew up, so that was kind of fun for me.
No, I understand that you actually have an FBI agent in the film.
Yes, Eric Hack is an actual FBI agent. He's also a warrant officer in the Texas National Guard, and he is playing the main Man in Black, Agent Donovan, which we named after Wild Bill Donovan, the founder of the OSS. And so it's really neat because he provided a lot of background for us on how a government agency would have been organized. Our idea is that this group, the Men in Black, stem out of the OSS. That where they would have gotten agents, just like the CIA did, would have been from that group. And so we made it more government than some of the ideas in the past that have been chosen on that. And having a real life FBI agent play it, and he had to get approval, was just it's kick-ass. It's perfect. Because he brings that government agency thing to into play. We also have something else. I want to make sure I mention it. When you ask about details, the spaceship We have rough dimensions of what people said the size were. So we actually gave it to Michael Malden. Dr. Fuzzy Malden was the inventor of the search engine, and he agreed to help out this, to be part of this, and this figure out if the ship could have held 2 4.5-foot creatures. And he said it could, given the dimensions. And then what would the propulsion be? And so he designed the spaceship. And one of the things we're trying to do is raise the money to build Malden's design. And to have somebody of that caliber involved in the project has been incredible. It adds instant credibility to the scientific side of the film, because I wanted that to be as solid as possibly it could be. Versus just, okay, we make up science. No, there's physics involved, so we want the physics to make sense.
Well, now, it just seems, okay, so you say it could have, 2 little creatures could have fit inside, but this doesn't seem like a thing that would have traveled many miles across space.
No, the idea is that it is a lander of some sort. And in fact, we incorporated that.
Like a
Michael
pod,
incorporated that into the design.
Like a pod.
Yes. And he made sure it was space.
Like Superman landed here in.
Absolutely. Sort of. So he incorporated space for them collecting rocks and things, because we wanted the idea of that they were here looking at our planet, and that would require taking back samples. All of that was built into the design.
You don't give any credence to the idea that this might have been Deglaka?
We considered that in the initial script. In the initial script,
I heard you say, yes, I remember hearing you say that, right.
And what it came down to was it would have added a lot of expense. Period clothing is difficult enough with the 60s, and my wife is an expert on historical clothing and impersonations, and she does it for Spy Museum and the National Park, and we actually both do, but she does it a lot more than I do. And so one of the reasons our visuals have looked so great is we're able to do this on a very low budget, because we know she knows what she's doing with clothing and matching colors and things. And it's actually one of the problems we have is Hollywood spends a lot of money and gets clothing wrong, and I don't know why. People forget clothing is meant to be worn. It's not a costume. And so we've been very happy with our, down to the littlest details, like the silver, was a silver star pin on LBJ. LBJ always went everywhere for silver star pin. And so film picks up details. So Richard John Walters, who was Harry Warden in My Bloody Valentine, plays LBJ. And we were very fortunate to have him as part of the cast. So those things all pick up on the screen.
Yeah. Now, Tim, we've written on Kecksburg and the concept that it might have been something that the Germans had developed, a time machine of some sort. But there is a rumor. Is there not, Cody, that some people claim that they actually saw some bony fingers of a hand or something come out of the craft?
Yes, when Stan Gordon did it's excellent oral history. I mean, it's dated in the sense of the feel, but it's excellent oral history he did on Kecksburg. He interviewed people that mentioned 3 fingers. So we built that into the design. I mean, the alien's now public. We built that in the design of everything, including down to Dr. Malden and Dr. Morehouse, who's an evolutionary biologist from Pitt, built that into the design of the aliens. Because again, we wanted this to make sense biologically and scientifically. So we brought scientists into the process. And again, most films don't do that. I mean, they make up junk science. We didn't want junk science. And so the 3-handed thing meant that all the symbols inside are built on hexagons. We decided that all this is part of who the aliens are.
Now, what about the symbols? Now, the craft had a ring around it or some sort, and there were symbols on it?
Yes, and so we sent that to Dr. Malden, and he invented an entire language based upon those symbols. And that is one of the really cool things we did for the film, that again, we're dying for raising the rest of the money, and so that's why we're literally selling T-shirts and selling tickets to the premiere and all kinds of things online to get the rest. And we have people interested in funding the rest. But Dr. Malden created a whole language based on those symbols, and actually they're very similar to a language in an Eskimo language. And my wife is getting me the name of it, that we used as the basis for this.
Now,
it's Hatna is the language. No, it's Hahtna. Sorry, he's got me looking at it. We took that Indian language.
Do you think that there's any similarity between what was on the Kecksburg UFO and supposedly what was on that I-beam at Roswell?
Yes, and I think that these things are very interconnected, and it's one of the problems I have is, and one of the reasons I'm doing this is, Roswell gets a lot of money, $91 million annually. Kecksburg should be in the Northeast a similar attraction, and draw money to the region and help the people there. So besides the mystery of it, there's an economic boom to the state of Pennsylvania, in particular the people in Westmoreland County, and it's an untapped resource. I mean,
well, now they do have a model UFO up there on stilts of or a platform or something. Do they have a yearly festival of any sort?
They have a festival, which is actually the end of this month. We're going to be there selling tickets and selling T-shirts, but I mean, it's attended by people from around the country, but mostly just the people locally. And it shouldn't be that way. I mean, this should be making real money for the region, and the people there. The fire department is desperate for this to happen. We're trying to get the state of Pennsylvania to move, and politicians move like glaciers.
Oh boy, isn't that true? Isn't that true? But well, that of course. Now we figure. I think at the last count we had about 10 or 11 festivals around the country, and of course that's kind of like I guess Roswell kind of got the ball rolling on that, or the saucer flying, or whatever. I think at one point the whole concept that you would approach the Chamber of Commerce about a UFO day, they would have probably locked you up or something like that. It was I'm sure in the beginning it was very hard to get anybody to be enthused about this because of the association of UFOs and the how can I put it? I guess the fringe element or something. I don't know what the fringe element is necessarily, but but
we have some wonderful people. Roger Marsh from MUFON lives right near Kecksburg. I mean, he's one of the main people in MUFON, and so they've been wonderfully helpful. They've helped advertise. I mean, our if I don't remember to mention my website, my partners will get mad at me, which is Principalities of Darkness, where that people can find what we're doing in Kecksburg. It's on Facebook too, but that's where we're selling stuff to try and raise the rest of the money. But
well, if you got an extra large T-shirt, I'll go. And you take PayPal, I'll go there later.
We do. So yes, that it's because there's 2 cool shirts that we have for sale.
Oh, wow.
And the new one has the boys who are in the film, which are amazing young actors that we were so fortunate to get. So yeah, it's the fact that what Roswell receives annually is the same amount of money in tourism that Gettysburg does. It's that big an impact. Well, and it's in the middle of the desert.
It surely wasn't like that up until 15 years ago. How
Friedman's book changed everything.
Yeah, I bet you Stan wish he had a cut of some of the action. Huh?
and that's one of the neat things. I mean, film and these things draw tourism, and it should be part of the whole business plan.
Yeah.
That you're drawing people to an area that there should be money coming back. So that's one of the things I've been working on to try and make film more feasible.
Do you plan a theatrical release, which is no easy project?
We do.
Yeah.
I had a limited one with Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies, and so that had a wide release as far as the DVD.
I get. Is that on net? Is that on Netflix anywhere? I want to see that.
It's on Amazon Prime, and
well,
we
hey,
sold
I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Oh, it's a horrible film, but it's fun. The English like it much better than Americans. It did very well in England. They sold it in supermarkets and all kinds of places in England and Ireland.
Now, what's
and
it
they
called?
enjoyed it more.
Wrestlers and Zombies.
Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies. It had Roddy Piper, Kurt Angle, Matt Hardy.
Well, you got some good, you got some names in there.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan, my wife was, and Shane Douglas, who was ECW champion, 3-time world champion. He is also in Kecksburg because my wife made me promise to only have one wrestler, and so I took Shane was in my wedding. Shane's my buddy, and so he's going to play the Kecksburg Fireman. Chief.
We had a show on just a couple of weeks ago. It was a tribute to a lady friend of mine, but she wrestled all over the world. Vivian St. John. She was one of Moolah's girls. This was back in the I guess the 70s, and she retired in the 80s. Yeah, 80s. She's one of the original girls of wrestling.
Hey, and you say Bruno, one of Bruno's girls?
I know Moolah. Moolah, who was
Moolah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moolah, yeah.
I remember
and
Moolah.
I think Sue Green was her tag team partner for many years. And she traveled all over the world. And then I first met her when she was like 19 years old. I had the New York School of Occult Arts and Sciences, and she came in. I know she was just left Cincinnati and came in, and was walking down the street and saw the occult thing, and she was interested in that. She did readings, and we had a couple of experiences with the Ouija board and all that. And then she disappeared, and years later I saw her, and she had, some of photos of all her wrestling boots and all that stuff. She had traveled all over the world in Japan and different places in Asia and all. So it was quite a show. I was the vice president of Pat O'Connor fan club, and Killer Kowalski used to order books from us. He was the famous wrestler.
Oh, I remember Killer Kowalski.
Yeah. He was very interested in Nikola Tesla and in the Philadelphia experiment. And most people don't realize that he was a diehard vegetarian. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he was a very, very interesting fellow. So, when do you think the movie will actually be released? Do you have a release date in mind?
We have set a release date for September 14th, 2019. So, I mean, our biggest goal is to get the money to complete the last part. We actually had to recast our lead actor. We had not filmed his scenes yet, and so we're in the process of auditioning people for that. And we think we might have found the person, but we have to go through the rest of the auditions.
What are you shooting? What are you shooting the film? Video or 35 or?
It is shot on video. But we've done some stuff in camera, not in post. Everyone wants to do stuff in post to make it look like film and make it look vintage. And because if you do the lighting right and you do the stuff in camera right, then you have to do less color correction and things later. And most of a lot of people I think they're lazy anymore. They don't want to deal with it. They just want to light it, 3-point lighting. This requires, dramatic lighting. And so
I bet it does, especially shot. Yeah, especially the stuff in the forest, in the woods, I would guess.
If you've seen our sneak peek, and I don't know if you have yet or not, we've put it up on YouTube, Kecksburg sneak peek, you will see dramatic lighting at every turn. And, we use a lot of shadow and a lot of the visuals are inspired also by Suspiria when we get to the boys, where you have a lot of different interesting colors that are not normally seen anymore in film.
Maybe we can get our YouTube editor to grab that up and put it on as a part of the interview. I'm sure our YouTube listeners or viewers or whatever they are would be would be interested in this. So, have you
We've been
had
getting a lot of
any?
praise on it.
Yeah, have you had any visits by? I mean, has anybody told you shouldn't be doing this?
Um, Not really, but I'm living in a unique place. I mean, I'm sitting at where we live at. It makes it different. I've had people a little concerned that I knew from politics, and mainly, the biggest pushback has been people about things like, because I was a politician and a newspaper editor, I post on politics in my personal pages, and then you get this whole you shouldn't have those political beliefs, and I believe everybody has to. I mean, art itself is always offensive, and art is political by its nature. And this story is immensely political because it goes to the heart of our government. So it's been more stuff like that because everybody's divided into two camps and want to scream at each other. And I'm very middle of the road between the two, and I think pox on both their houses. They need to grow up and realize people disagree. It's not that hard.
Yeah. So, would you ever consider doing another UFO movie, or is this a one shot?
I am considering another UFO movie, and this one would be one in which I would actually probably play the lead myself. I'm looking at Little Green Men in the incident in Kentucky.
Oh, great. Yep. Great. They had, of course, that was the epicenter of where they had the eclipse. They had their own festival there. I never did. They were thinking of taking in like $30 million or something. I don't think they came anywhere near that. But whatever.
I mean, that would be more on the lines of a comedy, a black comedy, because I grew up very Appalachian. And so I'm good at ad-libbing that type of character. And I think there's a lot of fun to be had in that story.
Oh yeah.
And
give me a shotgun and I'll come down and be one of the guys there in the Sutton family there. I think one of the Tim the granddaughters still around. I mean, people think like the whole family disappeared and nobody's ever heard from them, but that's not true. In fact, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, one of the members of the family, I don't know if they were there that night, and I even wrote a book, published a book on the topic. So, if they are out there, we will find them. I mean,
they never changed their story either. I mean, years later, it was just, they never said, oh yeah, we just, we were drinking too much. No, they kept with the same story. Tim, we've got about 2 minutes left in the show.
I see that. So let Cody give all the information and where people can follow up on this and find out about his movies and his future projects. And
awesome. You can find me on Kecksburg the movie. You can actually find my personal Facebook also, Cody Knotts. And on top of that, Principalities of Darkness is where we have all of the greatness right from the Bible. But principalitiesofdarkness.com is where you'll find our stuff for Kecksburg, the T-shirts, the premiere tickets, because we're selling them, and you can have your name in the credits as an alien abductee, which is a really cool thing. Which we've been. If they buy a premiere ticket, they can get their name in the credits, so that we can sell out the premiere. We don't have to have any other investors, and we can actually make this work.
Wonderful. Well,
the actors have agreed to work for very little.
Yeah, well, you got, when you're doing this kind of project, believe me, I always pay. Tim and I, we work together on this stuff. We always paid our, none of this referral stuff. You get paid, whatever the deal was, that was it, And we love making movies and wish we could do it again. It's a big project. There's no doubt about it, and we appreciate what you're doing and look forward to seeing the film when it's finished, or perhaps even before it is. And good night, one and all. And I want to thank you, Tina and Peter and Carol, and you, of course, Tim, there in Jasper, Indiana, and our two guests tonight, and all our many listeners worldwide. And see you on Mr. UFO Secret Files on YouTube.
You've been listening to Exploring the Bizarre with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz. They're taking back the night by jetting non-stop across the cosmos in search of the truly bizarre and totally unexplained, with you as their co-pilot. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on Exploring the Bizarre and hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz, check out their KCOR Digital Radio Network page. Follow their YouTube channel at MRUFO 1100. Exploring the Bizarre.